When you go to orchid shows, you'll see all kinds of orchids planted in pots and mounted, and it's just awesome. But there's something else that I like more than going to an orchid show, and that's going to a botanical garden where I can actually see these orchids as if they were in their natural habitats. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. You might be asking why in the world I'm going to Missouri. Well, first, it's close to me. That always trumps the other reasons. They are one of the botanical gardens that has the most number of orchids. And inside this dome that is specially built for tropical plants, there are more than 2,800 types of plants. They're not all orchids, but there are 1,700 types of tropical plants. Now, the Missouri Botanical Garden started its orchid collection in 1876 when Henry T. Shaw received the first orchids by Henry T. Blow's wife. Now, Mrs. Henry T. Blow served as a missionary to Brazil when President Grant was in office. There, her husband collected thousands, and I mean around 5,000 types of orchids, and she brought them back. Now, traveling with plants was a different thing back then, so I'm not sure that would really happen today. Now, in 1918, the Missouri Botanical Gardens actually put on their first orchid show, which was spectacular according to the other orchid shows that had been placed until then. This orchid collection gradually grew, and 3 years later they started a seedling propagation. So in 1923, they started growing their own seedlings. Now, the first hybrid that ever grew in Missouri Botanical Gardens was the Paphiopedilum. In 1923, the Missouri Botanical Gardens staff made connections both with Panama and Colombia, and in between the three of them, they exchanged thousands and thousands of types of orchids. And also in 1923, G.H. Pring traveled to Panama and Colombia, and when he returned from his trip, he brought back 5,000 types of Cattleya orchids. Now, all was nice and well, but in 1926, the orchids started to suffer because of so much smog and of the cold in the Missouri area. So they had to be transferred out of the garden to a special greenhouse, which was called Shaw Arboretum in the Gray Summit area. By 1954, Missouri Botanical Gardens had their first World Orchid Show, and the collection was returned to the Missouri Botanical Gardens. Now, today, these orchids are on display in what they call the climatron, which is this specialized greenhouse area which does not have pillars in it. The dome sits on a half an acre of land and is over 70 feet high, just so you get an idea. Now, of course, all these orchids will not be in bloom at the same time. I don't know what's in bloom now, so it's going to be a surprise. And a couple months back, here in Kansas, which is about 2 hours away, we had the worst frost ever. It got down to -30. Some of the tropical plants really suffered from this because we had a humongous blackout. And Missouri Botanical Gardens does not have every type of orchid out there. I do want to make that very clear. They do have right now, I think it's around 7,000 orchids. Those are distributed over 280 genera, but in those genera, they have 2,500 unique orchid tashas. So it's going to be amazing to see what I actually can find in bloom. I don't know if any, but let's hope that there will be. But the garden specializes in these, which are Cattleya, Laelia, Encyclia, Oncidium, and Paphiopedilum. So those I do expect to find. Fingers crossed, and let's see what's out there. And by the way, if you do like this video, it is a little bit different because I'm not actually teaching about orchids. I'm not sharing what I learned. I'm getting new ideas to see what I want to include in my orchid collection here at home. So I wish you the best in your orchid cultivation and happy cultivating.